Welcome everyone to the 2026 Monaco Grand Prix, where the most important day is Saturday and Sunday is all about the vibes. We're here to make our predictions for what's going to happen this weekend at Monaco Grand Prix. It is one of the more divisive race weekends on the F1 calendar, but regardless, I do think it's going to be a fun one, especially with these new regulations. I, for one, am extremely curious at what these cars are going to look like running around the streets of the Principality. Without further ado, let's not beat around the bush. Let's jump on into this thing and get started with our biggest positive surprise. Let's kick things off with the only way we know how, and that is with our biggest positive surprise. And I am going with a driver who I think had a very explosive start to his season once it finally got going, but has realistically not necessarily lived up to, I think, his own standards. I'm going with Oscar Piastri this week in Monaco. We've seen him obviously do very well at points this season. Think Japan. Obviously, he's had his down moments. Think Australia, think China, where he didn't even get to take part. But ultimately, even in Miami, he had a pretty decent race weekend. Obviously, in Canada, that was a bit of a disaster show all around, just from McLaren in general. This week, I do think Oscar Piastri is going to want to bounce back from a tough weekend in Canada, and we've seen him do well in Monaco before. Ultimately, this is going to come down to, I think, just how these cars and these drivers get up to speed at Monaco. Obviously, Monaco is an extremely outliery type of track on this calendar. It's going to test these cars to the limit. There's going to be no straight zone or straight mode or whatever they call it these days. And so it's going to be all about who can get the absolute maximum out of the car. And I think Oscar Piastri is going to bounce back from a poor week in Canada to a solid week here in Monaco. Before we move on to our pick for biggest disappointment, I will go ahead and mention, if you are interested in joining our Community Predictions Championship, you can head to the link down below, join the Discord, and every week leading up to a Grand Prix, I'll make a call for these exact same predictions that you can make, and you will get the opportunity to join the community championship that we have. You earn points for your predictions, and at the end of the season, we crown a champion. It's been a lot of fun. It's a whole great opportunity to really prove that wheel. And so all in all, it's a great time. We'd love to have you. All right, let's go ahead and move on forward to our pick for biggest disappointment this week. And I am jumping on a small momentum train that I've seen online. I'm going with Kimi Antonelli this weekend. I think this has more to do with the fact that it's Monaco, not necessarily the fact that it's Kimi Antonelli. Kimi obviously has been on the run of his career, his very short career. At this point, he's won 4 in a row, and he has looked nigh unstoppable. Now, the 4th one in Canada was helped out by George Russell's DNF, but ultimately, he's not going to care too much about that. He's won 4 in a row. He has taken the reins of this championship. But now we head to, I think, is probably the first track that really is suited better for other cars than the Mercedes. Will he be in the hunt? Who knows? I think we might see the first little blip, the chip in the armor, as it were, for our championship leader. It's not going to be the end of the world for Kimi Antonelli if he has a down weekend. He has been absolutely incredible this season, and I fully expect him to bounce back when it's all said and done. But ultimately, Monaco, is it the place that you really want to send your sophomore championship leader? Time will tell. Time will tell. He is more than capable of proving me wrong here and coming out and winning 5 on the bounce. I would put my hand up and I would say, good job, Kimi. What a job well done. But it's just one of those weekends where I think Monaco just might be a bit much for Mercedes and Kimi Antonelli. But like I said, we'll see when it's all said and done. All right, here it is. I really debated on switching up the order of my predictions for this video, but ultimately I think we got to stick it with the same order we've been doing this in for seasons to come. It's our qualifying top 3 predictions. Some might say that Monaco qualifying is the single most important qualifying on the calendar. In terms of what that translates to on Sunday, I think that's 100% true. I think ultimately there are some situations where other qualifyings are more important, like on a metaphysical level. But in terms of actually setting yourself up for the race on Sunday, I think Monaco stands at the pinnacle of all qualifying sessions. It's one of the most exciting. It's one of the most tense. These guys know that this is going to make or break their Sunday, and they're going to give it absolutely everything they had. That said, we have to narrow down into a top 3, and we're going to do that right now. Starting in P3, we're going with Oscar Piastri in this one. We've seen Oscar do well in qualifying around Monaco before. Like I said, I'm a big believer that Oscar Piastri is going to bounce back and have a solid weekend. And I think it's going to start on Saturday in qualifying, as he's going to finish P3 on the road in qualifying. As we're going to move on now to P2 in qualifying, I'm going with the hometown hero, Charles Leclerc. I think Ferrari is going to perform very well around Monaco, not only just for Charles Leclerc. Ferrari have been the best low speed cornering team on, at least at the top, this season so far. Obviously, they have to now be going in feeling pretty confident, and we always know Charles Leclerc he knows these streets quite literally like the back of his hand. He's going to be focused. We've seen every single year he goes and competes, he's always rapid, and I think it's going to be enough for a front row start where he's going to give it absolutely everything he has to take the win here. But that leaves only one spot remaining. I'm going with George Russell to take pole position here in Monaco. And I, for one, would be here to see it, because I think it would cause a little bit of a ripple across the way. I do think Ferrari will be the more performative car in race trim versus the Mercedes. But at the same time, it just feels like one of those situations where if I predicted Charles Leclerc to take pole, it would never happen in 1,000 years, and George Russell would just come out of nowhere and just snipe a pole with just an amazing lap. And so I'm sort of hedging my bets here a little bit. Ultimately, I think this front row, should it happen, would be one of the more fascinating things to come out of Monaco in a while. Obviously, with Ferrari and how fast their starts are, would be extremely interesting to line up next to George Russell. Obviously, it is an extremely short rundown to turn 1 at Monaco, but boy oh boy, would I be absolutely seated for that one. But there we have it, guys. My top 3 in qualifying. We have Oscar Piastri, P3, Charles Leclerc, P2, and a George Russell pole position. Qualifying is what it is, but when it's all said and done, it's all about who stands on the race podium. We are here. Let's make our predictions for the top 3 finishers in the Grand Prix on Sunday. Let us begin in P3, and I think unsurprisingly, I'm going with Oscar Piastri to finish 3rd here in Monaco. I think this will be a good bounce back from Canada for him, ultimately finishing on the podium, beating his teammate, reasserting himself a little bit, gaining a little bit of confidence as F1 is starting to get some momentum going in. Obviously, we had like the 6-month break in between, what was it? It was in between Japan and basically now. We had 2 race weekends in like 11-week period or whatever it was. But now that the season is going to start getting rolling again, I think this is where we see Oscar Piastri really start to reassert himself on the grid, really start challenging and pushing forward. And I think it's going to start this weekend in Monaco. I don't think McLaren is going to be necessarily super good around Monaco, but I think Oscar is going to make up that difference, and he'll finish P3 on the podium in the Principality. Moving on to P2, unsurprisingly, it's a race podium in Monaco. What do you expect? I'm going with George Russell to finish 2nd, because if I'm taking my qualifying prediction seriously, my winner for the 2026 Monaco Grand Prix is Charles Leclerc, because and only because that Ferrari has the potential to get an unbelievable start. George Russell would need to be inch perfect, I think, to make it into turn 1 in the lead if that is our front row. I know that Charles Leclerc would give absolutely anything. I think he would, if he's starting on the front row next to George Russell, obviously take this with a grain of salt. I believe in my heart of hearts that Charles Leclerc would rather DNF, trying to go around the outside of George Russell in turn 1 for the lead of the Monaco Grand Prix, than to sit behind George for 70 however many laps and finish 2nd. That's just me. Obviously, finishing on the podium at your home race in Monaco, above and beyond, he would take it 10 times out of 10. But I truly believe that he would do absolutely anything and everything in his power to get into the lead. And I think if that comes true, if they are on the front row together, that is exactly how I see it playing out. Cinema, absolute cinema. Charles gets his second win in Monaco. It would be scenes, it would be glorious. Everyone would love everything about it. But there we have it, guys. My race podium. We have an Oscar Piastri P3, a George Russell P2, and a Charles Leclerc hometown win. All right, let's wrap up this Monaco Grand Prix predictions the only way we know how, and that is with our one crazy prediction. And this time out, we are going with a Monaco special. My one crazy prediction is that we will see a car on pace alone be lapped at least 4 times this weekend. Last season, we saw Kimi Antonelli 3 laps down when it was all said and done. Obviously, Mercedes picked the worst possible strategy last year, and it ended up being what it was. I think this year, on pace alone, we'll see a car lapped at least 4 times. This obviously is discounting any damage, contact, mechanical reliability issues that end up putting cars, like laps down that way. I'm going on pure pace alone. A car will at some point finish this, I guess not at some point, at the end of the race, be 4 laps down. I'm going to use the rest of this one crazy prediction time to talk about this prediction for Monaco. Is so hard because it's so straightforward and there is very little room for chaos. Well, not like chaos, but in terms of like interesting one crazy predictions, there's not a whole lot there, and I find it really tough every single time. This one kind of depressed me a little bit because like I don't want to see a guy or a driver be out there getting lapped 4 times, but at the same time, in Canada we saw them lap basically everybody. And so I think this could be the case because there's no hiding in Monaco. You either got it or you don't. And if you don't, you are going to be feeling it for all like 80 laps. And so it's going to be what it's going to be. But at the end of the day, it's tough. There we have it, guys. Our predictions for the 2026 Monaco Grand Prix. What do you make of my predictions? Let me know what you think is going to happen because obviously you know more wheel than I do. Let me know down below in the comments what your predictions are for this weekend. And as always, if you made it this far into the video, I truly appreciate you. And please leave a like on the video as it really helps us out. And subscribe if you haven't already. Join our little community. We have a lot of fun, or at least we try to. We'll be back when the weekend is all said and done to talk about everything that we saw around Monaco. And it is all exciting 70 odd laps. So I hope you enjoyed it. Enjoy this weekend. It's going to be a good one. Qualifying is as electric as always. I'm so excited I can't even speak. Like I said, we'll be back when it's all said and done. I appreciate you making it this far into the video. And until then, I'll see you in the next one.